Hello, it's Alex, the Bookubus. Today I'm going to be wrapping up my Giallo July experience, and first off I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who joined in. It's been really fun to see people posting about what they've been reading and watching here on YouTube and also on Instagram. Apologies if I've missed anything, especially on Instagram. They've just made it really difficult to actually find stuff that people use the hashtag for, which is great, obviously. But yeah, feel free to get in touch and let me know if you've been posting things that I have missed. And yeah, it's been really cool to see some vlogs here on YouTube. They've been really fun to watch. I also made a few vlogs of my own. I don't vlog a ton, but I really enjoyed doing that. So if you haven't seen those yet and would like to, then you can check them out. A huge thank you also to my lovely co-hosts, Bert at Pastorytime and Kelsey at Slime and Slashes. I will leave them linked below in case you still, for some reason, aren't subscribed to their wonderful channels. It's been, great to have you both along for the ride. So I managed to read 10 books, some of them were short, and watch 17 films during the month. So I'm really pleased with what I managed to accomplish. I definitely made it, a focus of the month. Checked out a bunch of new to me Giallo films and for the most part, really enjoyed them. I was planning on, doing some kind of look, some Giallo vibe for this video, but I had a tooth removed a few days ago. It was a fractured tooth, so it had to come out, and I'm, at some point going to be getting an implant, which is, if you know, I've already been through some traumatic dental experiences, and this is another one, so that's super fun. Anyway, I'm just feeling, I'm still recovering from that, feeling pretty low energy. So honestly, was just feeling a bit too lazy to really put in too much effort, at least with the visual aspect of this video. So here we are. I know that's not what you tune in for anyway, so it really doesn't matter, but I am wearing my Giallo July t-shirt. I figured this was a great excuse to wear it again. And also a thank you to everyone who bought t-shirts. It's been really cool to see a few of you pick them up, and I hope you've enjoyed wearing them. So I'm going to start off talking about the books that I read. I read 10 books, generally enjoyed them. As you probably already know if you watched other videos of mine, you know that horror is my genre of choice. But it was fun to kind of step away from that for a month just to explore some other things that I might not ordinarily pick up. Some like crime, thriller, mystery type books. I mean, I do pick those up from time to time, but it's not something I read regularly. It was interesting to focus on that for a month. I had overall a really good time with it. I'll start off with my favourite book of the month, which was The Aosawa Murders by Riku Onda. This is centred around a poisoning that took place at a birthday party in the 1970s where most of the attendees died. The only survivor of the family was the young daughter who is blind. Could she possibly have been behind this poisoning? And the story is told in a really interesting way. It is coming from multiple perspectives, including a local person who some years after the incident wrote a book about it. Also her research assistant. We also hear from the detective who was on the case, and a few other people who have some connection to the case. I really, really liked the way that this story was told and the fact that it didn't, just kind of follow like a linear format, and it also was somewhat cryptic and enigmatic. It didn't just spoon feed you all of the details, which just made for a really interesting read for me, and I really liked how the whole story played out and how it ended. I thought it was really fantastic. I think the format might not work for everyone, but it definitely worked for me. So if it sounds interesting to you, I would highly recommend it. This was a 4-star read for me and my favourite book of the month. If you've read anything else by this author, I would love to hear what you thought about it, and yeah, maybe I'll check that out too. So I'll carry on with some of my other 4-star reads, but they aren't ranked in any way. So I read a Sweet Valley High book. This was Deadly Summer by Francine Pascal, although it was ghostwritten by someone else. And yeah, sadly, I heard just a few days literally after reading this book that Francine Pascal passed away. But yeah, what an amazing legacy. Like, I remember loving the TV show in the 90s, but I'd never actually read any of the books. I have picked up a few over the years from thrift stores and stuff, and I have read a couple of the like the younger age twin ones, like the kids and whatever the other one's called, but I hadn't read any of the classic Sweet Valley High series. And yeah, Deadly Summer is one of their super thrillers, so yeah, it seemed like it would be my cup of tea, and it definitely was. This one is, yeah, following the twins. They're working, I think, at a newspaper, and there's a case that breaks where a patient has escaped from a psychiatric hospital. Turns out he used to go to Sweet Valley High, and he is out for revenge against the people that bullied him. So yeah, the twins get caught up in this, and alongside this, the twins are also playing with a Ouija board, and yeah, there's some shenanigans that go on there, which was really fun. And yeah, the kind of main story with the guy that escaped does come to quite an intense and somewhat emotional climax. So yeah, this was just a really good time. I went in, you know, with no expectations really, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I'll definitely have to pick more books up in this series when I see them. Dead Girl Blues by David Sodergren was another 4-star read for me, and I had the pleasure of doing a buddy read for this with a few friends over on Instagram. I think generally we all had a good time with it. This is about a woman who, out in the city, she stumbles upon a woman who is dying, and yeah, she basically dies in her arms. And following this, our main character gets pulled into this dark world as she tries to find out what happened to this woman and why. So yeah, this one, it did take me a minute to get into it, and there were a few things that I don't think really worked. But once the story kicked in, it was, yeah, really well paced, had lots of great action and gory violence, yeah, lots of references to Giallo and horror films. Overall, I really enjoyed this one. I had a good time with it. I liked the ending, and yeah, David Sodergren is an author I've been meaning to pick up for years because I always hear good things about his work, and his books always seem like things I would enjoy, so I don't know why I haven't picked him up sooner, but here we are. And yeah, I'll have to pick up more of his books at some point. Another 4-star read was Fade Out by Joseph Hansen, and this is the first in a series following an insurance investigator. So it is in essence a detective story, but yeah, our main character, Dave Brandstetter, is looking into a car accident where the car has been found, but the driver has not. So, you know, can the insurance company pay out on the death? Did this person actually die, or is there something else going on? So yeah, he's investigating. Yeah, this one is, yeah, loved the 70s vibes. I think it was written in the late 60s maybe, came out early 70s. So yeah, that kind of general era I really enjoyed. It had some great characters, and it also has some gay characters, which for the time period wasn't necessarily commonplace. And the edition that I read, the one with this cover, had an introduction by the author, and it was really interesting to, yeah, hear a bit about his career and how, yeah, this book got picked up. So yeah, this one I enjoyed. The story was intriguing, and it definitely had an emotional element to the story too. Not only dealing with this, you know, potential death and the people surrounding this character and how it's affected them, but also the main character and his own personal struggles and stuff that he has been dealing with. So yeah, it's a series I would definitely pick more up from in the future. Okay, and last up for the 4-star reads was The Final Gate by Wesley Southard and Lucas Mangum. This was a novella inspired by the films of Lucio Fulci. Definitely reads very much like an Italian horror film, and that's why I really enjoyed it. This was Kelsey's pick for her July book club, and I did see in one of her recent videos that she actually didn't get to it in July, so she's going to be reading it in August. So if you still wanted to join in with her book club, you probably still have time to do so. But yeah, this was my first time reading these authors. I would definitely read more based on this one. It's basically about some creepy stuff happening in an orphanage. Good stuff. Yeah, definitely lots of gory scenes and just the kind of off-kilter Italian horror vibes that you would expect from someone like Fulci. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. It was a fun time and I gave it 4 stars. I then had 2 3.5-star reads. One of them was Don't Scream by Joan Lowry Nixon, another vintage YA title. My first time reading this author. Again, I would definitely read more of hers based on this one. It's about a teenage girl, of course, and there are 2 cute boys who move into her neighbourhood and start at her school. We learn at the beginning of the book, though, that there is a boy who is a sociopath and might have murdered someone in the past, but he's now under some witness protection program. So we know that one of these cute boys is this person in question, but we don't know which one. Of course, things play out over the course of the story, and yeah, I think the way that things came together at the end was really good. I will point out there might be some pets in peril in this one, so yeah, be forewarned. But yeah, this was a fun one. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't, you know, quite as good as the ones I've already mentioned. And the other 3.5-star read for me was The Yellow Room by Mary Roberts Reinhardt. This, I believe, originally came out in the 1940s, and it has, yeah, that wartime era setting, and it's about a family who go to open up their summer house and they find a dead body there. So yeah, who is she even, and what exactly happened? So it's kind of your classic whodunit murder mystery. I enjoyed it overall. I did think it was a bit long and a bit convoluted, and there were lots of characters to keep track of. But I did just like the story overall, and yeah, the setting, the atmosphere, that kind of Agatha Christie type of vibe. Yeah, I could definitely see this being turned into like a Sunday afternoon TV movie, you know, which is always a good time. So I'm so glad I checked this one out. It was a pretty good time. And then I had 3 3-star reads. One of them was The Benson Murder Case by S.S. Van Dyne. This one originally came out in the 1920s, and is actually the first book that the Italian publisher Mondadori published in Italian in their Giallo series. So I figured it was very fitting to read this one for Giallo July. And yeah, while it wasn't my favourite, I did still enjoy it somewhat. This is another classic whodunit type of story. There is a body found, but who killed him? So we have a detective on the case, but then there's also our main character, who is just this kind of wealthy dude who also just happens to be able to deduce immediately who the murderer was. But instead of just saying so, we have to go through an entire book of him being smug about knowing while the detective goes through all of the different avenues of who it might be until it's finally revealed at the end. So yeah, the main character I wasn't like a huge fan of. He did have his moments, but yeah, he just kind of came across as, yeah, a bit too smug and snobby for my liking. I thought the way that the story went was still interesting. It had some good twists and turns towards the end. Yeah, some good red herrings along the way. So still glad I checked it out. I also read another vintage YA title. This was part of the Galloping Detective series, and it is False Lead by Claire Birch. And I thought this was middle grade, but the protagonist I think is around 16, so that's usually the age that YA books from this era at least were kind of revolving around. So this one, main character is a horse girl, and she regularly goes to this particular stables, and there are a bunch of people that also go to this stables who have had their houses burgled recently, and so she starts to think that there might be something related to the stables, connecting them all. So yeah, she starts investigating and figures things out, of course. There's a bit of romance along the way as well, and yeah, this was fun enough and obviously a quick read, but yeah, I don't know if I enjoyed it enough to bother tracking down any of the other books in the series. But if you are a horse girl and it sounds fun to you, then I would still recommend checking the series out. And then the last one was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This is a more recent one, and it's like a cat and mouse thriller about a woman who is house sitting in a remote location, and she posts a book review online. She gives this horror novel a 1-star review, and the author contacts her asking her to take it down. She refuses, and then yeah, it seems like she's being stalked by the author. So yeah, I thought this was a fun concept, and there were certain elements that I enjoyed, but, and I said this in my vlog, but this kind of illustrated why I stopped reading thrillers a few years ago, because yeah, I feel like a lot of them have great concepts, but the execution just for one reason or another doesn't really work for me. So I think it's just a me thing rather than it being a problem of the book itself. I just don't think this is my kind of thing, you know, so, which is fine. I'm still glad I checked it out, but yeah, I think it was a bit too long, and it relied a lot on there being so many different twists and reveals and such like, which after a while I found just got a bit silly. And I think that had I cared more about the main character, I might have, you know, been a bit more invested in it. But while she is given a somewhat sympathetic backstory, I personally didn't really care too much about her. So, so yeah, that probably played a part in it. Yeah, like I said, it had its moments. It was definitely like a quick page turner type of book. So if it still sounds interesting to you, I would recommend checking it out, but I just don't think it was for me. So it was a 3-star. That is it for the books, and moving on to the films. So since I have 17 to talk about, I'm not going to talk about them all, as we will be here all day. I'll quickly go through them all, but I will talk a little bit more about my favourites. Let's see, I had 5 4-star films that were my favourites. So yeah, I'll go through the others quickly. My least favourite was Discopah. I just gave this 2.5 stars. This is a more recent one, and yeah, is more just, I would call it like a kind of an exploitation throwback rather than Giallo specifically. It had its moments, but overall it just didn't really hold my interest. Franchesca, I gave 3 stars to. This was a more recent one too, but this one definitely heavily inspired by Giallo films. This one did feel a bit style over substance to me. So then I did have a bunch of 3.5-star films. So I did enjoy these. I would definitely recommend them. They just weren't quite as good as the other ones that I will get to shortly. But let's see, we have Black Belly of the Tarantula, The Laughing Woman, Nothing Underneath, $5 for an August Moon, Strip Nude for Your Killer, Delirium, Photo of Joya, The Sister of Ursula, The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, House of the Yellow Carpet, and The Unknown Woman. So yeah, I still had a good time with these ones, and would recommend checking them out. But on to my top 5. So these ones I all rated 4 stars. I think I've got them here just in the order that I watched them throughout the month. So the first one was The Fifth Chord, which was actually the first one I watched in the month. So I really did set it off on a high note. And And yeah, this one, absolutely stunning, like probably the best looking of the films I watched in the month. That's not to say that others didn't look good too, they definitely did, but this one is like really, really gorgeous. Just the way that it's shot, it's worth watching just for that. Story-wise, might not be like the strongest or my favourite, but it was just a great viewing experience. And it stars Franco Nero, which I know I've mentioned this in a vlog too, but was, yeah, super handsome, and I enjoyed him being in the film. So yeah, this was a really good time, highly recommend. That one was directed by Luigi Bazzoni and is from 1971. And then moving on to Sleepless, this was from 2001 by Dario Argento. And yeah, I went into this with low expectations because while I do love some Argento Giallo, this is not from the golden age, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it has lots of great gory kills and yeah, a wacky culmination and just a lot of great stuff along the way, basically. Yeah, I had a really good time with this one. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. I also watched The Psychic from 1977, directed by Lucio Fulci. This one is about a woman who has psychic visions and she finds a dead body in a home owned by her new husband. And yeah, things go from there. I really enjoyed this one. It had great atmosphere. It looked wonderful. Yeah, very 70s. Great score as well. I really enjoyed how the story came together. And yeah, it was just a really good time. And while it does have a couple of moments, it is definitely one of the less gory titles in Fulci's career, at least yeah, horror and giallo wise. So if you wanted to watch some Fulci but you're not a gore hound, then I would recommend checking this one out. I really enjoyed it. It was wonderful. And then another one from 1971 is The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, directed by Sergio Martino. This one stars the lovely Edwige Fenech, and yeah, I really enjoyed her performance in this one. And she plays a woman who is married, but she had a previous relationship that was sadomasochistic in nature, and she is having these like dreams slash nightmares about it. She's also having a fling with another guy, and then alongside this there are some women being murdered in the city. So yeah, who could it be that is the killer? This one was great as well, another great score that I really enjoyed. I did not know where the story was going to go, so I did enjoy how it all panned out. I thought that was really great. And yeah, there were some really awesome dream nightmare sequences that I thought were really visually stunning. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one too. And then last up we have Spasmo from 1974, directed by Umberto Lenzi. This one's following a man who thinks he might have killed someone, but then maybe he did, maybe he didn't. And he meets this woman, and could she be involved somehow? But they have a fling anyway. And yeah, it's kind of like a weird, like you don't really know what's happening kind of storyline. But yeah, some other characters are introduced along the way. He's kind of like, yeah, just kind of pulled into all of this weirdness. And of course, yeah, towards the end things started to become a bit clearer. Yeah, I just really enjoyed the style of this one, and the story was interesting, had some great moments, and yeah, was just kind of like an unnerving, intriguing one that yeah, I thought was really great and had a great ending. So that was my top 5 of the films I watched. Highly recommend them if you haven't seen them. And that wraps up my reading and watching for Giallo July. Again, thank you ever so much to anyone who joined in. And yeah, you'll have to let me know what your favourite books or films were of the month. If you have any recommendations, I would love to hear about them. Anyway, that about wraps it up for Giallo July. It's been a really great month. I read and watched a bunch of cool stuff. And yeah, it's been really awesome to see some of you join in too. So thank you so much. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!